Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Hello and welcome to Golden State Media Concepts Relationships Podcast. I'm your host, John Johnson, and I am partnering with Care Of. Care Of is a subscription service that delivers vitamins and supplements which are customized for your specific health needs. You take a short quiz and answer a few questions about your diet, your lifestyle, your fitness and health goals, and Care Of puts together a personalized plan just for you. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that after my first segment, but I'm going to dive into this topic of learning it now. Now, what brought this about is I had a listener who shared with me that they had been in a fairly short relationship with someone, and they had met just on an outing and decided they had quite a bit of chemistry. So they went out a couple of times, and it was after spending some time with that person that the individual who I've spoken to discovered that the guy didn't really represent himself completely honestly. And she was feeling bad, at least initially, until I had a little chat with her and kind of explained that there's a lot to relationships that, you know, if you don't know they ask certain questions, then you kind of get caught with the aftermath when you find out that the person hasn't really fully represented themselves, and or maybe in a sense saying it differently, they weren't honest about the status of their relationship. So here's the scenario. People that come to you in your life from various directions. They could have been fresh out of a relationship. They might be fresh out of therapy. They could be maybe even in a relationship, but just haven't figured out what they want. And then they meet somebody like yourself and find a lot of things attractive about you. Well, all of that's well and good when the question comes as to what your status is, that they fully reveal that. And for some people, if you're involved with more than one person, they consider that an affair. Other people say that that's polyamorous. And I think the thing that's significant about being in a polyamorous relationship, and poly means many, amorous means love, and you can love more than one person. But it's when the conversation comes up, you're really being open about who you're with and just basically the status of the other relationships in your life. And it's all good. But what happens a lot of times is that information isn't really divulged. And the deception here, when that information isn't given, especially when it's asked as a direct question, is unfortunate. Now, in the case that I'm sort of speaking to the individual who felt deceived, and clearly that's what it was in this particular case, and I might share a little bit more in terms of details as I'm giving the advice here. But it's being in the experience of that and how you go forward. Well, I'm sure we've all had some bit of deception in a relationship fashion. So how do we move forward from that? Well, first of all, I think this is beyond the point of where in other podcasts I've talked about asking good questions ahead of time, because there's a lot that you know about yourself, your expectations, and things like that. And you sort of depend on the other person to be honest about who they are. And at that point, you go forward. But if you find out there is some deception, then, you know, you can decide how you want to handle that. You can handle it straight on and say, hey, look, this is what I understand and this doesn't jive. Or you can cut it off and say, hey, I don't want to have anything else to do with you because I don't believe you. But if you've never been in that place, if you've never been in a situation to learn how to ask good questions, when you have this experience happen to you, a lot of people take it on themselves as it being their fault. And what I like to tell people in situations like this, you've been betrayed. And don't blame yourself for somebody else misrepresenting who they are. And you've got to really take that on, because the sense of where you go after this, some people get depressed because the deception does a lot of things to people. And I think one of the things that happens is people sort of regress to their childhood when there were expectations. As you're a kid, somebody tells you, hey, we're going to go to the fair, and we don't go, but they promised you that they would show up, and this kind of thing happens. So they set up the expectation, and then the disappointment that happens. And who knows what story you get told. You might be told that it was your fault or something like that. And you kind of come away from that feeling like, well, if I was only good enough, then somebody wouldn't have let me down. And those feelings, you may wonder, how is it that those things just carry themselves for years and years and years? And every disappointment you have kind of kicks that thing that happened into your childhood back. You start feeling like it's your fault. And in the case of something like this, where you get involved with somebody and then the deception happens, the lie gets told, or you get to feeling like it's your fault, and then you start blaming yourself, you go into a depression. Well, I'm going to tell you, look, stop right there. Because in a case like this has nothing to do with you and you telling a story. This has to do with them, and I don't want you to take on the feeling of guilt that happens in these situations, because a lot of people will drop this sort of stuff on you and walk away, when really what they walk away from is you feeling terrible. Stop. Don't take that on as if you did something wrong. And one of the things that happens again is people feel like, wow, if I'd only asked this particular question or that particular question, I would have known this. Not necessarily, because remember, this person lied from the beginning. So I don't want you to feel like you could have done anything. This is something that oftentimes is out of your control. And I make that distinction because there are times in life when we don't ask questions because we don't want to know the answers. But in a case like this wasn't it at all. This was a case where somebody was deceptive and left you holding the bag. And I applaud you for holding them accountable in the sense that you're not going to crater and feel like it's your fault. So if you've ever been in that situation and you're still wondering, or maybe you're still feeling down about that, yeah, I think the down part is when you feel like you had a connection with someone and it felt good to be involved. That part feels great. And being in a relationship is what you want. So you can always look for that in the next person that you meet, that you want to have a relationship, you enjoy the companionship, doing things together, or whatever that is. But when the deception part happens, then remember to hold them accountable for how they're being towards you. Now, this can be difficult because oftentimes we can see our own flaws. We see our own mistakes, and we don't necessarily want to be heavy-handed in our criticism of someone else and their imperfections. Well, remembering that we're all human beings, we're all fallible, but when it comes to being asked a question that's clear, hey, are you single? Are you available? Are you dating someone else? Yes, no. I mean, these are all very, very simple questions for people to ask. And if the situation requires some discussion, then give them an opportunity to have a discussion about it. But there and again, you can decide what you want for yourself. If you're a person that is into polyamory, then you certainly want to hear them out. If you're a person that is into monogamy and the person comes to you and says, well, they're sort of involved with someone, well, then that's a big red flag, because obviously what you want is probably going to be a little different than what they want. So it's about knowing who you are, what your needs are, understanding who they say they are and what their needs are, and deciding by everything being upfront what works. But I can tell you that when you discover that somebody is not telling you the truth, then that sense of betrayal really hits you. You might feel a hot flash, or you might get the sweats, or you might feel a rush of anger or something, or however it manifests itself in you. Some people have some really strong physical reactions to that. Take a step back, take a breath, and collect yourself. Think about what you're feeling, and this might be a good time to write some stuff down. I don't think people should jump into confrontations. So if that's where you tend to go when you get this big rush, I believe in taking a step back and really thinking about it. Because with that, then you can collect yourself and have a rational discussion, and that'll be best for you. I'm going to take a break, but I'll be right back after this. Hi there, it's John Johnson from the Golden State Media Concepts Relationships Podcast, and I wanted to share again that I am partnering with Care Of. And as I said before, Care Of is a subscription service that gets vitamins and supplements that are designed specifically for you. So with summer approaching, I want you to make health and wellness a priority again, and Care Of makes it easy to upgrade your health routine. So give yourself some support this season with a boost, because whether you're looking for energy, better sleep, to maintain the stress, or just something else to help you feel your healthiest, Care Of's online quiz lets you know exactly what you need. So Care Of's fun online quiz asks you about your diet, your health goals, and lifestyle choices. And you know what? It only takes about 5 minutes to find out your personal, scientifically backed vitamin and supplement recommendations through them. Look, you answer some easy questions like how much sleep are you getting? Are you looking for more energy? Do you need something to help support your weight management or healthy hair, skin, nails? And it gets really personalized. So it can be really hard to know what vitamins or supplements you should be taking, but Care Of makes it easy to find out what you specifically need. So Care Of delivers daily vitamin and supplement packs, which are all customized to your recommendations. So you're only getting what you really need. And depending upon your personalized Care Of plan, you'll get daily vitamin packs or protein powders sent right to your door. Look, it's so cute and customized. The packets even say your name on them. Now, you can modify your subscription at any time when your needs or preferences change. So Care Of makes sure that what you're putting into your body comes from the best sources, and they're backed by honest guidance and transparency. And it's all available to you on their website. Look, Care Of now offers protein powders, which are available in individual packets for on the go, and tubs. Like I said, they're all personalized to your fitness goals and dietary preferences. The individually wrapped vitamin packets are now made from compostable plant-based film that meets the same safety standards, so your vitamins are kept fresh while now being better for the environment. Vegan and vegetarian supplement options are available to match your dietary needs and ensure that you're getting the nutrients you need for those specific diets. So here's what I'm going to tell you. For 25% off your first Care Of order, go to takecareof.com. That's TAKECAREOF.com and enter promo code relationship25, and you're going to get 25% off your first order. Here's one more time. Go to the website and key in takecareof.com, TAKECAREOF.com, and enter relationship25. 25% off your first order. So give it a try.
The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything travel. We explore places you've always wanted to go, as well as giving tips for traveling in those places. We'll give you advice on the best sites for travel tips, information, and discounts. Join us as we travel the world, explore cultures, and meet new people. The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast has got you covered. Download the GSMC Travel Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Hello, and welcome back to Golden State Media Concepts Relationships Podcast. And the thing that I had touched on in that first segment when I was talking about this particular relationship and the two individuals who, one of them wasn't really completely transparent, and the betrayal, which is what really got the other person upset, and that's why I was in conversation with them, because they were sharing this information with me. Now, the roots of that, the reason it's so painful is generally because all of us have experienced some sort of letdown. And I gave an illustration of how, let's say you're supposed to go, say you're going to go to the fair or go to the movies, and somebody promises you that they're going to show up and they don't. And they sort of give you this excuse that makes it your fault why you didn't get to go. And however that comes about, it's very painful, and what you get reminded of is being let down. And the betrayal taps into that. And because it is such a deep, deep feeling, it leaves you feeling very hurt inside, and very, very angry, and all of those kinds of emotions. And those things are very, very difficult to process. Because if you've experienced a lot of letdown, a lot of disappointment, and when you have spent some time with someone to, say, build a bond, build a connection, and you find out that it's not what it had been made up to be, then you're going to feel that sense of loss. And that loss, that letdown, that disappointment, that depression that comes with that, all of that comes under that betrayal feeling. And what we do about it is sort of that part of the next thing. I mean, I've talked a little bit about how the scenario, the setup for it, and the fact that somebody else let you down. One of the things to help process this is not to necessarily blame yourself for it. Now, in other cases, I talk about asking good questions so that when you're going out with somebody, you know something about them. Just go into a situation blind. You got to ask decent questions. But if you get into one of these scenarios where you've asked the questions and the person didn't tell you the truth, and then you find out something else later, like I say, vis-a-vis the betrayal, people still find themselves trying to blame themselves for these things going wrong. I said, I should have known, and this, that, and the other. Look, give yourself a break. Don't beat yourself up over this. You'll get over it a lot faster if you quit beating yourself up. Just learn from it, and with the aspect of saying, hey, you know what? You learn better questions to ask next time. Because if it was clearly a situation of you not asking, let's say you discovered now that you didn't ask a specific question. Well, I think in the case of the example about this individual not really revealing his relationship status and that he was already involved, that's pure deception. You can't do anything about that. What you can learn to do is go forward, learn to rely on yourself, move forward, and say to that person, hey, I'm never going to let you in my life again. And maybe they will get a life's lesson about learning how to tell the truth. But learn to support yourself, and don't let yourself feel as though you are to blame for somebody else letting you down. Enablers do that oftentimes, or white knights, they do that. They tend to blame themselves for somebody else either being a liar or letting you down. And oftentimes what white knights do, and white knight is somebody that likes to be a rescuer, that's another name for it, is they want to swoop in at the last moment, and they want to be a hero in the situation, because it makes them feel good. Enablers do this kind of thing also, is because they're afraid to hold people accountable. They're afraid to confront things. And because if they do, then what they're afraid of is that the person who they are trying to develop this relationship with is going to disassociate from them. And they would rather have them in their life and deal with all the pain and disappointment than being alone. So what do? We tend to allow these kinds of toxic situations to go on and on and on. If any of this kind of stuff sounds familiar, you're dealing with somebody who is a habitual liar, somebody that lets you down, somebody that brings a lot of drama and toxicity into your life, you got to look at what you're doing that allows them to continue to be in your life. Are you afraid of being alone? Have you been abandoned? I mean, that's another thing that happens to people. And if stuff sounds familiar to you, then what I think is a better thing to do is really start looking at yourself, how you can support yourself, rather than Band-Aid it with all of these external things, because it's a way of imagine an octopus. They have these long tentacles and they're grabbing at 8 different directions at one time. And that's sort of you. You're just grabbing onto stuff, trying to survive. Well, don't do that. Give yourself a big hug. Trust in yourself that you can take care of you. Now, emotionally, you're probably pretty fragile, because the minute someone threatens to leave, then you crater. Well, who's ever going to threaten you like that probably isn't the kind of person you want to have around you. But you got to learn how to take care of yourself. And by doing that, you'll be a lot stronger. And you'll learn that because you can be strong in your life, you can ask more of other people. You're much more independent. You can ask more of other people. They'll bring more to the table. And it'll be a much better balance in a relationship. Look, I'm going to take another break, and I'll be right back after this.
GSMC Beauty Tips Podcast gives you advice on everything from hair to fashion to skincare products. We'll talk about the latest trends in makeup, hairstyles, and anti-aging remedies. And we'll cover all of the newest fashion trends. If you have an interest in or questions about the beauty trends that might work best for you, the Golden State Media Concepts Beauty Tips Podcast has got you covered. Download the GSMC Beauty Tips Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar. Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football, from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
And we're back. Learning it now. That's the topic of this particular podcast. Now, the illustration that I've been sharing with you was about two people who had gotten involved. One of them wasn't as transparent as they should have been about their relationship status. Got involved with another person who was much more transparent. And then shortly thereafter, person number one found out person number two was not being totally honest. So there you have a situation where, if in the case of a lot of people, there would be a lot of depression. They'd blame themselves for being misled. And I've talked about betrayal, the disappointment, the depression, the things that happen for that, and what I'm trying to help you deal with, if this is a situation that you are dealing with presently, or if you've dealt with it in the past, and maybe it took you a while to work through it. I mean, if you didn't have a counselor around, it might have been really difficult to work yourself out of it. Now, some people bounce back from things like that fairly quickly. But what I often ask people, at least in the beginning, now this is before, now if you've never been in a relationship where you asked a lot of questions, you just kind of fell into it with someone, or if it was somebody that you knew fairly well and you didn't have to ask a lot of questions, then you kind of know what you're dealing with going on. But if it's somebody you haven't known for a while, then you really owe it to yourself to ask very good questions. And I've talked about that in other podcasts. Now, let's say that you've done the question and answer thing and the person has just been dishonest about it. And now you find yourself, okay, what do I do at this point? I've given the advice that you can easily walk away from this one. Because I think what happens to some people when they've been betrayed is, and this is a really big one, because this one's really touchy. You decide, okay, do I want to still be involved with this person or do I not? And when it comes to being asked direct questions, I think it's very simple. You don't have to make excuses when somebody just straight out lies to you. You don't have to give them an excuse, because oftentimes you might become an enabler. And if you've dealt with loneliness, that might be one of the reasons why you want to, you want to hold on to this person because, oh, wow, you finally got somebody that's interested in you. Well, this person isn't a good candidate. And without some reasonable explanation, like maybe a misunderstanding, then you're going to have to come to grips with the fact that this is probably not a good choice of a person to be with and move on. But if you're having difficulty with that, now is the time to learn how to support yourself, how to take care of your own needs, and so that you don't find yourself attached to people who are dishonest, people who will deceive you, people who will take from you, because those people are out there in abundance, and they oftentimes look for somebody who is weak. And when I say weak, I don't mean a bad person, but somebody who is emotionally in a place where they're so vulnerable that they'll take anything that comes. And if you've been, and I think we've all been at that place where we've been lonely and we wanted something to fill the void. And if it happens to be a person, maybe they're attractive, maybe they have a lot of charisma, and you find yourself feeling happy that somebody is drawn to you, then that does feel good. But remember to try to keep it in perspective. Don't allow yourself to be used or abused, emotionally, physically, mentally, because it usually is something that's not going to end up well for you in particular. And I don't want you to suffer the fate at the hands of somebody who doesn't treat you well. Sometimes it's a long journey to find a person who you are much more evenly matched with. But be on that journey, because I think when you find that person, then you're going to feel a lot better about all the stuff that you let go. And I've talked to a number of people who have expressed exactly that. They thank their life for having had the ups and downs, because it made them appreciate that person who finally showed up that had all the qualities that they admire. And I know sometimes breakups come with a lot of hard feelings in some individuals. Some people wish just ill will on you, and I'm not one of those kind of people. I know I've had relationships that didn't work out, but the thing that I didn't want is for anybody to walk away feeling too terribly bad about the experience. So if this is something that has happened to you, you don't have to, like I say, wish anything bad on somebody. Sometimes things just don't work out. You just go your way, take care of yourself, move on, and prepare yourself for the next relationship that can come your way, and be available to that. Learn what you can from the relationship that you left. And collectively, think about it from this standpoint. You brought your heart to that relationship. And I know here's another something that happens, and this just popped into my head. Sometimes when a person leaves us, then we attach so much significance to the fact that they've left. Maybe you took a wonderful trip or something, and you have a lot of memories about that kind of thing, and you're worried about that never happening again. Well, think about it. You're 50% of that. So whatever experiences you had, you keep those. Whatever contribution you made, you keep that with you. You take that with you. You take those memories with you and recreate those in another phase of your life. You meet somebody and you decide that you like to go on trips, then take that knowledge with you. You don't have to leave that just because that person left. Remember, you are part of that. So remember to invest in your own self, invest in your life, find people who value you, and remember how special and unique you are. So when you're looking in that mirror, give yourself a pep talk. Remember that you're beautiful. Be a friend to yourself. Think about that every day. Be a friend to yourself. You're beautiful. Give yourself that pep talk. And then when you meet the world, meet it with a smile, knowing that you're trying your best to make it a better world. Don't let someone else rob your joy and the love you have to give over an experience of something that you had no control over. So there you have it. I want you to learn it now and give it your all. I'm John Johnson, and this has been the Golden State Media Concepts Relationships Podcast. Thank you for listening.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.